Welcome to Man 360. I'm your host, Brian. Today, I sit down with the man who is very rare to the world and our culture today, a working producer in Hollywood with a PhD in theology. Now, those things probably don't seem like they would go together, but Phil Cooke has a passion to help people know who they are, what they're created to do, and to get creative ideas out of their head into the world. He is a respected speaker, media producer, writer, author, and life coach, and we have him on the program today to speak into your life. In our hobby segment, we have our resident chef, Rick Wolf, here to cook up a delicious meal of fish and chips made from scratch. Then I share something fun with food that Yolanda and I always do whenever we travel outside the country. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Welcome to Man 360. Phil Cooke and I sat down for a conversation at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Orlando, Florida. We talked about all the things he does, including his blog that has a massive following, to a discussion about his new book that talks about coming up with creative ideas on a deadline. Phil is such an amazing source of knowledge when it comes to media and culture, and I know you're going to be blessed and encouraged by our conversation. Here's my interview with media producer, writer, speaker, and life coach, Phil Cooke. Phil Cooke.
The way you said that, that's a good way to start the interview.
It is so good to have you on Man 360.
Oh, yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. This is really fun.
And I know, again, you've heard a lot about me. You said I've heard a lot about you.
Absolutely.
And I was talking to one of our managers, and I said, what do I ask Phil Cooke from Man 360 to speak to our men? And I couldn't come up with just 4 questions. So I want to talk to you today.
Okay.
I think about the key part of who you are is really creativity.
Yeah, true.
But also the fact that you live in the world of people that pre-believers, people that don't know Christ, and also with ministries. So maybe share real quick just who you are and what you do.
Sure. We have a company called Cooke Media Group in Hollywood. We're living in LA, and we do 2 things primarily. We produce projects all over the world. We've shot in about 70 countries around the world, and we did a big commercial campaign just last week for a big organization here. And we also consult and advise a lot of television programs, a lot of churches, ministries. I just really believe that media is the language of our culture. And if we don't learn to speak that more effectively, we're going to continue being marginalized, and we're just not going to have an impact.
Yeah. And I know, too, you wrote a book about just kind of, for lack of a better term, the church losing its saltiness.
Absolutely. I wrote the way back, and the subtitle is how Christians blew our credibility and how we get it back.
Right.
And I wrote it because we really wanted to discover why we're losing that credibility, why we're losing the culture, in such a quick way.
Yeah.
And the more I got into it, we started looking at research and discovering Christians are just terrible at being Christians.
Yeah.
I mean, it's staggering when you look at the statistic. I found one statistic that said something like 80% of Christians will never share Christ with a single person in their entire lifetime.
Wow.
75% of the people in pews on Sunday read the Bible once a month, rarely or never.
Wow.
I found 63% of Christians in the pew on Sunday believe in prayer. But then, and I thought, okay, well, that's a win. But then I realized that means 37%, more than a third of Christians in church don't believe in prayer.
Right.
And so when you look at those kind of statistics, you realize why the world doesn't listen to us.
Yeah.
It's like going to the Coca-Cola headquarters and everybody's drinking Pepsi.
Right.
We're not living the life that God's really called us to live, and it shows.
Yeah, and I do think, too, we're also talking about, again, who you are, what you do in creativity, and really getting the best out of people in ministry and who you consult and talk to and connect with. I know you just wrote a new book as well about creativity. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that God has a lot of attributes, but he chose to introduce himself in the first verse of the Bible as a creator.
Yeah.
And we're made in his image, and I think that gives us a high bar, and we better learn to be more creative in the way we share the gospel. And so I wrote Ideas on a Deadline because I live, like you, in a television world, and deadlines are all I've ever known. I don't get to sit on the back porch and wait till the idea gods drop something on me.
Right.
I have to hit a deadline by Tuesday, and I realized there's no book, nobody's ever written a book on how to be creative when you're under pressure.
Yeah.
And so I wrote Ideas on a Deadline, how to be creative when the clock is ticking, focused on that. And the truth is, one of the things I discovered in the research for the book is there's no people on earth that are born not creative. Let me say it better. A lot of people will come up to me and say, well, Phil, I like all that creative stuff you talk about, but I was never born creative. I'm not very creative. Let me tell you, there's no research that indicates that. We're all born on an equal platform. Everybody can be as creative as they want to be.
Yeah.
It really is like a muscle. If you use it,
Yeah.
you can grow. If you don't, so every housewife, every lawyer, every accountant, everybody could be more creative
Yeah.
if they just start thinking that way.
Yeah, and I think too, sometimes we categorize people who are like, are you left brain or are you right
Yes.
brain? Instead of saying, are you using your brain?
Yeah.
Right?
True.
And we were talking about too that we have the creator of the universe inside of us.
Yes.
Why aren't we the most creative?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, well, I don't make movies. Phil's a big shot in Hollywood.
Oh, no.
He's known around town and he's,
Yeah.
rubbing elbows. And it's like, for each one of us, and we mentioned this before we did the shoot, is that there's a level of creativity that we have to think about in our own lives.
Yes.
And I want you to really speak to that as well. So it's not like, I'm not going to make a movie, I'm not going to do something like that. Creativity is so much greater than that. So just speak to
everything
men
that
in
we
that
do.
too.
Yeah, I tell people, dress a different way, drive home a different
Yeah.
way, read different books, talk to different people. You can grow your creativity very easily,
Yeah.
but you have to make an effort. And the
Right.
truth is, we need more creative moms, we need more creative lawyers, we need more
Yeah.
creative doctors.
Yeah.
I really do believe that if we're going to impact this culture today, we've got to be creative in how we do it.
Yeah.
Because you got to admit, Hollywood is extraordinarily creative in how they do it.
Very much.
Madison Avenue advertisers are extraordinarily creative in how they do it.
Yeah.
And so I think if we're going to counter that and be effective as Christians,
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to do it in a very, very creative way.
And I think it goes back to what you were saying about the previous book too, about how we've got to trust that we believe in what we're selling.
No, that's true.
Right, we have to believe that we have that answer for the world and not be
Yes.
apologetic about that.
So
I think sometimes
true.
we get into apologetic type of conversations where like we don't want to look uncool or we don't want to look like we don't want to love people.
Yes.
But even the definition of that in creativity. So let me ask you this too, Phil.
So true.
What do you feel like would be some practical, maybe a couple practical points
Yep.
to expand your creativity and who you are? What would you say to me?
I think that's a great question, and a lot of it is just opening yourself up to new ideas. So often we get in a silo. We just think a certain way.
Lencioni
Oh, there you go.
silos.
Yes.
Oh.
And social media is a good example. How
Yeah.
many of us just follow people that think like us?
Yeah.
Follow some people you disagree with. See how other people think.
That's really good.
Just read some books that you may not agree with, or may open your mind up a little
Yeah.
bit. Just hearing those other points of view can completely change the way you think. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're going to cave or give in,
Right.
or change your perspective, whether it's politics or sports or whatever.
Yeah.
But it does mean you're listening and you start understanding how they're thinking. And so maybe I'm not going to be such a jerk with him next time.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to at least start a conversation.
Be
And it
empathetic
makes
in
it-
those conversations.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference. It really does.
Yeah, I think too, in what you were saying too there about listening and reading and absorbing other people,
Yes.
what they're doing, it's also even more important that we know the Word.
That's
right?
true.
We're
Oh,
grounded in a good
yes,
church.
yes.
That we know where our foundation is because the world knows exactly who they are, right?
Yes.
And again, I say the world, we're mentioning that. We're all in the world, we're all secular until we go to heaven, right?
That's so true.
But in our relationships and our connections, it's like when we know who we are, then we can project Christ
Completely.
through us to minister to
I'll tell you
men.
something interesting.
Yeah.
The Center for Bible Engagement
Okay.
did an 8-year, $1 million study on what habits and behaviors help us be better Christians.
Yeah.
And they studied listening to worship music, going to church, listening to sermons, prayer, all those things.
Yeah.
Here's what they discovered. The single greatest thing that takes you to a new level as a Christian
Yeah.
is engaging the Bible 4 or more times a week. They discovered that if you
Really?
read it less than 4 times a week, you have no behavior change in your life than somebody who never reads the
Wow.
Bible. But they said you read it 4 or more times a week, and here's the funny thing. You start getting into weight loss, you start becoming a better person, a
Right.
better husband, a better wife.
Right.
Addictions drop,
Yeah.
drinking drops, smoking drop.
Yeah.
I mean, all these behaviors, visible behaviors.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that when you actually engage the Bible 4
Yeah.
more times a week, people notice.
Right.
It changes the way you act. It's just fascinating.
It's so funny too. I remember somebody was talking to me about John Maxwell.
Yeah.
And they're like, he has these amazing business principles about
Yeah.
how you grow and you do whatever. And I remember him answering, he was just talking and saying, the reason why those work is because they're biblical foundational principles that are good in any area of your life. So it's not just the
Really
religious
good,
side.
yes.
And trusting that we're more than just who we are as a Christian.
Yeah.
And that sounds so funny to say that, but it's like, who are we to the world?
Yes.
How does the world interpret what we do and who we are?
That's
So-
really, and funny thing is, it's part of it is just being a nice guy. And
Exactly.
I mean, everybody in Hollywood knows I'm a believer.
Right.
But nobody has a problem with it. You know,
Right.
they may think it's weird.
Right.
They're not sure. Of course, in Hollywood, there are people that, hug rocks and worship trees and
Right.
all kind of weird stuff. So being a Christian may not be that strange.
Right.
But it's just interesting that if you learn to engage with people and be interesting, and it's you can make a huge impact.
That's awesome. Phil, thanks for being on
Oh, my
360.
pleasure. This has been fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love that Rick Wolf is not an actual trained chef, but just a guy who likes to cook. Here's our hobby segment with Rick cooking up a delicious batch of fish and chips, and then me sharing about something fun Yolanda and I do when we travel outside of the country concerning food. Check it out. Rick Wolf.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Yes.
Now, men, at this point in all the seasons we've done for Man 360, if they see you come on the screen,
I'm here to cook.
we are here to cook.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to call you Chef Rick probably through this whole segment.
Very good.
And,
I'll accept it. I've never been a working chef or worked at a restaurant, but I love to cook at home.
So I think that gives men hope to hear that it's not like, I'm not a sous chef. I haven't been to cooking school to know how to do all these things.
Sure.
A lot of these things that we do are so simple, so amazing. I know that you cook a lot by visual as well. So you cook your meals based on if it looks good or not.
Correct. And I want to make it look good. So it's how can I take my meal and make it look like it's something I would pay for?
Yeah. So Yolanda and I, when we were out and about, you said, hey, if you're ever traveling and you're out and you want to take a picture of what you're eating, bring it back and we'll see if I can cook it in the kitchen. Yolanda and I were in Ireland recently.
I did, and then she dropped this on me.
Yes, and we said we're going to do something really easy. We're going to do something that could scald us to death in hot
Right.
oil, which is amazing. Guys love that kind of stuff. Potential death, potential harm today with our cooking. So we took a picture of fish and chips when we were in Ireland, and now we're going to see if we can recreate it.
Perfect.
All right, let's do it.
So obviously this whole thing, I had to test it at home. And at home, I went through the whole process. It took probably about 35 minutes. We don't have that much time.
Yeah.
So I prepared some mashed peas, mushed peas. I didn't quite get the mush. Mashed peas, homemade tartar sauce, which
So
you'll
you
see
made
on
that
the
tartar
video.
sauce.
We made the tartar sauce. We
That's
seasoned
awesome.
the peas. We seasoned the fish. I prepped some fish already. We'll do some together.
Okay.
And then made our own batters, flour, club soda water, seasoning in here as well.
Wow.
And then started with the chips and just did a pre-fry. We'll drop those in at the very end just to crisp them up.
Yeah, love it.
So the first thing is we want to dredge or put a little flour on the
Dredge.
fish. Dredge is coming
Official
up. Yes.
terminology for cooking here.
And this is just taking the fish, dipping it in the flour, just getting it and patting it off just to get a surface on there that the batter can stick to. And it's always good to use fresh fish if you can get it at your local market.
Yep.
If you're not right on the sea and you can't get stuff
Go catch it yourself.
right, you just find a market that you can trust what they get.
If you're landlocked, though, you can't. You'll just have to go to your local,
Right.
Ted's convenience store. But if you're here in Florida,
You
go
could
catch
get
your
fresh fish.
Yes.
I did not do that,
we
but I
could have
did
said
trust
that.
this.
They would have never known. You could have
wouldn't
said
have
that.
known.
We caught
Right.
this fish. We caught it at the store. So technically, we caught the fish.
So obviously, the next step, taking your fish, placing it in the batter,
Yes.
covering it on both sides.
Slathering it. It looks
I
so
should
healthy.
not have used my fingers. I
Looks-
got tongs
yes.
right here.
Oh, yes. No, we're guys. We don't use tongs.
Right?
Look it. In fact, oh, no, we need those to pull those out of the hot oil. We're
No,
not
we
that
got
cool.
a basket. We're good.
Yeah, we're not.
So-
oh, we do. So we're going to,
so-
tongs,
Are gone.
we're hand guys today.
Get it covered both sides.
Yes.
Again, this is what we made with just flour, seasoning, and club soda. And we're going to just get this going in the fryer.
Yes.
Want to
Look at that. It's like dancing in the oil.
I want to try to crisp it up before we let it drop.
Okay. So that's that to keep it on the fish?
Keep
so it
yes.
doesn't just go
so,
everywhere.
well,
when you drop
and so
in
it
there?
doesn't stick to the basket.
Okay.
I learned that lesson last
Okay.
week, testing it
With
out.
that,
It's like,
yeah, so you did
we
some
don't want this.
testing on this to make sure that this wasn't a complete failure on the air. Thank you. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Yes,
That's
I
good.
do want this to work
Making
out
sure.
for us. So again, the same thing. We take the fish, we dredge it just a little bit, make sure we're covering everything, and then we get it in here into the oil and just start the cooking process before you drop it.
I think we should do some more segments with hot oil and cooking things this way. I feel like this is definitely more of a manly. Well, we did our fried bologna sandwich as well.
We did the fried bologna
which I got a lot
sandwich,
of compliments about that. I told my dad about that. He really enjoyed it too.
I am curious if anybody's actually tried that.
I know. You know what? Actually, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, if you can let us know if you have tried any of Rick's recipes that we've done through the years, and just let us know how it's turned out. Maybe send some pictures of your success
That'd
or
be great.
failure. Maybe or if you have something that you'd like us to cook here on Man 360 during a segment through the season, you can also connect with us on Instagram or Facebook.
Send a picture. Let's see if we can recreate it.
Send a picture.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So like Chateaubriand or something. What's the one where they do the pastry around the meat?
Oh yes, that's a
Beef Wellington.
Beef
Wellington.
Yes.
So send us a
Yes.
picture of beef Wellington. I would love to taste it. Rick, I would love to cause him
I have
nightmares of trying to how to
never
cook that.
made beef Very good.
Hilarious. All right.
All right, so we
that's
can
cooking.
hear this.
The sound of deliciousness.
Thank you.
Yes.
It should cook for about 375 and 4 to 5 minutes.
Okay. So the
we're
total
looking
time you
good
mentioned for the meal is about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Prep
that-
everything and
prep,
do everything.
Preparation
Okay.
and then cook time.
Yes, that's good. Okay. So what's next?
So the next step, obviously, is going to be plating and seasoning the fries.
Okay.
Which we can't drop until the fish finishes.
Now, are all these deliciousnesses
So yeah,
to
let's
try
go ahead and
with
talk
the
about
fish?
this.
Okay.
I have discovered in my own kitchen that when you muddle, if you can see this, I've
muddling?
just got,
You just mentioned muddle.
yeah, so
Okay.
squishing or crushing the salt
Yeah.
and the peppers together, you get a much cleaner, fresher taste. I know that can get
So
loud.
you're a cook. You're a purist then. You're not like go buy the pre.
If I can make it, yes, it's going to taste fresher, better.
Yep.
So the salt that you see here is where I've muddled or mashed the salt and the pepper together. And if you just take your finger and try
I'm gonna
it,
lick my finger and put it in there.
stronger, richer.
It's got more manliness to that
There you
salt.
go.
Right.
I
That
think
is
that's
manly
appropriate for
salt.
this show, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. So yes, I did that. The rest of the stuff we're utilizing some cayenne,
Capers.
some paprika, some, as you see, capers in the
Yep.
tartar sauce, mustard for the tartar sauce as
Okay.
well. In the flour, I did mix in a little bit of
Is that
cornstarch.
Okay.
And there is
I was gonna
some
say
baking
turmeric.
powder as
Would
well.
you put turmeric in there?
I
It's just
w-
a fun word to say.
I would use it in probably the tartar sauce.
Okay, so let's-
I
yeah.
choose not to, but
in some
you
way.
can.
Okay. So are we going to? So what's next here?
I was looking for those really manly tongs.
Oh, sorry. I guess I will give you.
I wasn't gonna put my
so these
hands
are manly
inside here.
tongs. These are not fee-manly tongs. These are manly tongs. Oh, to flip them over there.
Yeah, as you see,
You
it's
can't just
starting
like
to
throw them
float.
up in the air like a pizza and flip
Yeah, I
them
wouldn't
over.
recommend that.
Okay.
I mean, no, if you prefer the way you
If you
look,
want to do that at your home,
right?
we're not responsible. So we're not responsible if you harm yourself by using oil, deep fried oil.
Probably
at
another
your
minute
home.
there, and we're
Okay.
good to go. So yes, fresh ingredients if you have them, and then if you can, make up your own sauces. This time we used a brown sauce that you mentioned you found in London
Yep.
and loved it, but I couldn't find it here in the States.
So when we were in Ireland, I asked the waitress, I said, I thought I'd be really cute, and I looked it up on my phone. I was like, do you have any HP sauce? Again, we're in Ireland. And she goes, what's HP sauce? And apparently HP sauce is the England version of brown sauce. That's what they call brown sauce.
Right.
In Ireland, they have this really amazing name that is so astounding, it's ridiculous. They call it brown sauce.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, that is, I'd rather say HP. But we found this is original Thomas sauce. And I think the brand of brown sauce from Ireland was Blenders.
Blenders? Yep.
Blenders
We
brown
might
sauce.
have a picture of that.
Yeah, I think we have a picture of that. So this is Thomas Gourmet Foods original Thomas sauce. And so basically it's all brown sauce.
Yeah, and
in some
brown sauce
capacity.
is basically vinegar with Worcestershire, salt, pepper. You might even find a little sugar in there. It's not as rich and thick as a barbecue sauce,
Okay.
but it's more on the vinegary
So this
taste.
is like ketchup
So
then,
when you hear
basically.
fish and chips, You think of vinegar on your fish and chips?
Yeah.
That's what the brown sauce is doing.
Okay.
So we should be good here. I just pull this up. You can see the nice browning flavor. We're just going to
So is there too
plate
long
this
you can
real quick.
cook that if you want that extra crispy? Could you cook it a little bit longer, or does it start scoring the fish or scarring the fish?
I
the fish.
would imagine you could get it too crispy or overdone.
Okay.
What I'm looking for is these little crunches on the top and around the sides.
Oh, I
and
will
that the
be
fish,
too.
Yeah,
That sounds
around the
delicious.
fish is again nice and white on the inside.
I love it.
And we just let that drizzle a little bit. We'll plate it right here.
Look at this, huh? Rick Scott, what is this, Richard?
Just a pickle, bud. Try it. All right, and
I
you know
love
what?
pickles.
The fish is looking good. It's going to be too hot to eat, so let's just drop the fries back in the basket.
Okay.
This is what they call a double fry.
I love double fry.
And we're just going to fry those up again real quick.
Just to warm them up, give them a little extra.
Correct.
I love it.
Right. And then we'll
Let's
go ahead
taste
and
it.
plate
Let's
that.
taste the tartar
Yeah,
sauce.
please try that. I mean, you could take that in.
Wow,
You know
Rick,
how?
come on, that is so good.
Do you know how close
that is so
tartar
good.
sauce and tzatziki sauce are? I mean, they're almost the same ingredients
Really? 'Cause
everywhere.
well, I know it's the
except
same
there's no Greek yogurt in this.
And it's the same consistency for sure.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So
so are we going to make the crushed peas or the mushed peas?
Well, I did.
Okay.
We'll show you some video on how we did that. Season just a little bit with the ingredients on the side there. Some garlic,
my show, so
salt,
I can
and
use my
pepper.
fingers.
Here we go. I think we got a good crisp on the fries.
Oh, it's good. I'm wringing my hands. My mouth's actually watering right. This is not. There's sometimes for movie magic, we say things. My mouth is literally watering right now. So.
All right, there we
So
go.
good.
Fries.
Bite of pickle. Sorry, Rick. I'm making it look messy. Sorry.
How'd we do? If we're comparing that to the one you did, you got to taste it to really
We have to
find
taste
out.
it, so-
Get in there. Try a little lemon on there too. Oh wait, don't forget your brown sauce.
Oh yeah. Is this the screw off kind? Okay. So I suppose I'll just pour this here behind there. Gonna make a mess in our nice white kitchen. Let's see. Some tartar sauce on that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Flaky still on the fish, white inside.
Yep. So is that how you can tell too it's done?
Yeah, you
It'll
want
turn more.
Well,
more
we're using
white.
a white fish
Right.
to generally. So yes.
Okay. Well, the cameras can keep rolling if they want. We're going to keep eating. And Rick, as usual, oh, sorry. Both our hands are messy because we're men. Dirty hands, shaking
Absolutely.
hands. Thanks, Rick, again.
Really good.
We'll put this recipe up on man360.tv for you all to share
Perfect.
and to see. And if you cook it, please take a picture of it and send it in. We'd love to see it. So
Excellent.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yolanda and I are finishing up our cruise, and we are docked, as they say, on our ship in the city of Cobh. It's spelled C-O-B-H, and it's also the port of Cork, which Cork's a little city that's a little further north here in Ireland. And interesting fact, this was the last port of call for the Titanic before it sailed to pick up more passengers before it sank. So they have some museums and other things here as well. But one of the things Yolanda and I love to do when we're traveling is to stop by grocery stores, local grocery stores, and just see what kind of foods they have. Obviously they're things that we would not find in America. So we purchased 3 different types of foods, and we're going to look at them today. So one of them is the Dolce Sol Black Red Velvet with raspberry flavored cream. I think that's 44 grams of sugar per little packet, so that'd be interesting. This, it says it has no artificial flavors or sustainable for vegetarians, which is hilarious. These are Whatsits, and these are the crunchy version. I guess the Whatsits are more like cheese puffs, and these are more like Cheetos. And then to honor the coronation of King Charles this year, we got some fries, the King's Coronation Peppermint Cream. We don't know, maybe these were created just for him. So these are little bars that have peppermint in them and then chocolate. So I'd say let's start with the red velvet, since these are probably at the highest level of sugar. Individual packets. See that there. It's like a soft wafer, I guess, on the bottom. Kind of like sponge cake. Yolanda likes red velvet more than I do, but it's good. It's not quite as sugary as I thought it would be. I just had 40 or 22 grams of sugar with those 2 bites, so that's good. Let's try the Wotsits Crunchy. And these are really cheesy, not just lightly cheesy. Yes, thank you for getting on that. Let's try one of these. So one of the ingredients is paprika, so that's probably the coloring on there. That's good. It's more dense than a Cheeto, even though it looks like it. It reminds me more of like a Whole Foods or Sprouts Cheeto that you would get, kind of that type of texture and consistency. They're good, and these only have 1.7 sugars. And you can taste that paprika in there as well. Yolanda will taste these and she can taste and smell everything, so she knows that. Let's try the King's Coronation Fries Peppermint Cream. I don't think these are individually packaged, so Yolanda may have to, oh, they are. Little package. Yolanda just made a face of exuberation. These have, per bar, 32 grams of sugar. So, yeah, that was Yolanda snickering in the background. I normally don't eat this kind of stuff, but actually this cruise, I tell Yolanda I don't eat this kind of stuff. When you go on a cruise, you eat that kind of stuff. Don't say you don't eat that kind of stuff. So they're little fries bars. So it's like a stick of peppermint patty. You can see, so it's like a peppermint nougat in there. Ooh, make a commercial for fries. Wow, that is super sugary. So I'm gonna go, I fall into a sugar coma. And again, we encourage you, whenever you're traveling, always look for local grocery stores. One of the stops that Yolanda and I did when we were in Amsterdam, we were driving around the outside area of Amsterdam. We went to a little grocery store and they had these super fresh vegetables, they had super fresh fruit. We got some grapes, we got some of these little red berries, and Yolanda and I asked the girl, we're like, what are these? And she said they're red berries, and they're little red berries. So we thought they had some kind of like local name to it. But always fun to kind of go off the beaten path and go look for local grocery stores and go find and try some treats. Let's do our 360-degree review of today's program. What you heard from Phil Cooke was only a brief sample of all the gold inside of him. I appreciate all the thoughts he shared about operating with deadlines in mind, but not letting that pressure sacrifice your creativity. And that everyone has the ability to be creative, and it's not just for a select few. I also hope you take to heart the few practical steps Phil shared about expanding your creativity. For more information about Phil and all the ways to connect with him, including a link to his new book, you can go right now to man360.tv/additional content. Rick Wolf did it again with those fish and chips, and we all loved every bite. We actually kept eating after the camera stopped rolling. And I hope you take to heart what I shared about finding grocery stores when you travel outside the country and finding foods to sample and enjoy. Doing simple and different things like that are fun ways to make any trip more exciting. Man 360 exists for men to be complete in every way through Christ, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Please connect with us on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll see you next week, right here on Man 360.